He was never one for grand gestures. Not the kind to shower me with roses or surprise vacations. But at 28, I had already come to know love in quieter forms. Forms that lingered in the corners of our daily life like soft light through curtains. Every morning, there was coffee waiting for me. Not just poured, but made the way I liked it, too much cream. Not enough sugar. He'd fold the newspaper open to the page I always read and set it beside my mug. I never asked him to. He just did it. He fixed things before they broke. The screen door that used to creak? I only noticed it stopped when I opened it one day and it didn't whine. He never said a word. Just quietly repaired the little pieces of life so I wouldn't have to. He held my hand during arguments. Even when we were too proud to speak. His fingers would find mine under the table or in the car. A gentle reminder that love didn't have to disappear just because we disagreed. He never missed a grocery run. Never forgot to bring back my favorite tea even when I didn't write it down. Sometimes he'd leave it on the counter with a sticky note that simply said, "Thought of you." We'd sit in the evenings. Often without saying much. I'd read while he tinkered with something, his old tools. A leaky faucet. The handle on the cabinet that kept sticking. The house breathed with his quiet attention. I remember one night we were watching a movie. Something I had picked. And he laughed at all the wrong parts, but I looked at him and realized I didn't care. His laugh filled the room. That was enough. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't poetry. But at 28, I had a husband who knew my rhythms. Who steadied my storms without asking for applause. And though I didn't know it then, those ordinary days were the most sacred. Love lived there, in the mundane, in the silence, in the way he always made sure the hallway light was on before I came home late. By the time I was 32, something in me had shifted. Maybe it was the stress from work, the endless responsibilities, or just the slow erosion of novelty, but I began to feel like we were stuck. Like he was stuck. Predictable, quiet, safe. He still made the coffee. Still opened the newspaper for me. Still fixed the things that broke. But I stopped noticing, or worse, I noticed and didn't care. I wanted more excitement. More spontaneity. More of the kind of passion I thought I was missing. I started staying late at work. Telling myself it was for my career. For my goals. For us, but really. I didn't want to come home to the same couch. The same silence. The same man who never seemed to change. He'd ask how my day was. And I'd answer with half a sentence. He'd touch my hand and I'd pull away. Gently but firmly. Pretending to be distracted by something on my phone. He never complained. Just looked at me a little longer before turning his attention elsewhere. At dinner, I grew impatient with his stories, ones I used to listen to with love. I rolled my eyes when he forgot what day of the week it was. Or when he hummed while folding laundry. I criticized things I once thought were endearing. He didn't fight back. He just listened. And then, there was someone. Not a person, not fully, but a presence. A man from work who laughed in a way that made me feel visible again. We never crossed a line. Not really, but in my mind. I did. I let myself imagine what it would be like to be with someone who didn't take things so slowly. Someone who wasn't always just there. Steady and quiet. I started to resent the very things that had once made me feel safe. The soft gestures, the calm routines, the way he never tried to fix me, just waited for me to come back around. I thought maybe he had given up, that he had stopped trying, that maybe he didn't care anymore. But he did. He always did. And I was the one who couldn't see it, too busy chasing noise to recognize the beauty in stillness. I turned 35 the day before our 12th anniversary. We barely spoke that morning. There had been an argument the night before, one of those quiet ones, where nothing explodes but everything aches. I told him I was tired. Tired of feeling unseen, unheard, untouched. He didn't argue, he just nodded, and went to bed without turning off the lamp. The next day, he left early, didn't say a word, no card, no flowers, no happy anniversary, just the sound of the front door closing as I stood in the hallway, waiting, hoping, for something more. I spent the day furious. I scrolled past smiling couples online, arms wrapped around each other with balloons and roses and dinner reservations. I told myself I had every right to feel forgotten. I poured that bitterness into chores. Laundry, cleaning out drawers that hadn't been touched in months. And then, I found it, tucked inside the pocket of the jacket he always left draped over the dining chair. There it was. A small, folded piece of paper, my name written in his messy, slanted handwriting. I nearly tossed it aside, assuming it was some scribbled errand list. But I opened it anyway. It was a note, short, simple, written with care. He had planned everything. A dinner at the little place we went to on our first date. A reservation under my maiden name, because he thought it would make me smile. He had arranged for our neighbor to light candles before we arrived. He had even hidden a small gift in the drawer beside the bed, just waiting for the right moment. He never got the chance. Before I could do anything, before I could call, apologize, tell him I'd been wrong, the phone rang. It was the hospital. There had been an accident. A driver had run a red light. He was on his way home. They said it was quick. They said he hadn't felt pain. But I did. I felt all of it. I fell to my knees in the hallway. The note still crushed in my fist. The silence in the house roared. And I realized, I would have given anything to hear him hum while folding laundry just one more time. I was 36 when I sat alone at our anniversary table. The candles he had chosen were still in the drawer. I lit them anyway. I placed 2 plates, 2 glasses, the bottle of wine he had planned to open. I even set out the little wrapped box he left behind. Inside was a necklace, simple, gold, with a tiny heart carved into the back, still always, still yours. The chair across from me stayed empty. The food went cold, the wine untouched, and I just sat there, staring into the flickering light, trying to remember the sound of his voice. I began to see him everywhere. In the grocery store, where I still found myself reaching for his favorite tea. In the garage, where his shoes still sat by the door. In the voicemail he left just 2 days before, reminding me to pick up milk and ending with that soft half laugh that always meant I love you without saying it. His absence pressed itself into every corner of our home. The mug he used every morning. The hoodie he always left on the arm of the couch. His wristwatch, still ticking on the nightstand. Stubborn and faithful as ever. I carried his last note in my purse. Read it often, sometimes aloud, as if maybe, just maybe, the wind could carry it back to him. At night, I lay on his side of the bed, closed my eyes and pictured the quiet things I never thanked him for. The little moments I once brushed aside, the early mornings, the Sunday drives, the way he always waited for me to come home before locking the door. By 39, I started bringing books to the cemetery, sitting beside his grave with a thermos and 2 cups. I read to him the stories he used to love. I talked. I cried. I laughed when I remembered something ridiculous he once said. I wrote him letters and left them in the grass. At 40, I share this story not because I've found peace, but because I've found clarity. Don't wait for love to scream. Notice when it whispers. when it folds your sweater, when it fills your cup, when it remembers your silence and answers it with presence. Because sometimes, the note you find comes too late, and the chair across from you will never be filled again.